Please stand with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jonathan. We appreciate that all of you care enough about your community to participate in the process of choosing state leadership. The important next step is for you to vote by May 17th. Tell your friends to vote. If we want to keep our county conservative, we need to get everyone out to vote this season. By now you should have received your voters' information pamphlet in the mail. If you have not, call the county clerk, make sure you get one, or stop by the Republican office right across the street from the courthouse. We do have a few there. You should also have gotten your ballot in the mail. Same story with that. If you've not gotten your ballot, you need to speak to the county clerk. Don't wait till the last minute. We want everyone to vote, please. Your Eagle newspaper, do y'all get Eagle newspaper? That should have come in the mail. This is a cover-to-cover read. Yep. This is our voice in this community. We want everybody to have a subscription to this. It's kind of low. So if you don't have a subscription, stop by our office. We'll get you signed up for that. We hope that meeting the candidates will give you the confidence to make an informed decision when you vote. We welcome you to take photographs, short videos, whatever you want, so long as you don't block our cameraman, which is right here. I'd like to introduce Mike Jones, who has graciously volunteered to live stream this event so that every citizen can participate. Like I said, don't block his view because citizens all over the county are going to be watching. Thank you, Mike. It's a privilege to have your expertise tonight. To my right is my Vice Chair, Candy Kaiser, who is also the chair of our communications team. Great lady. If you don't know her, introduce yourself. Candy will be timing the event so that each candidate has equal opportunity to think, to speak. That too. We'll be announcing the timing prior to each segment. Candy, would you please step up to explain the process of timing and discuss how the straw poll will work that will follow the forum?
Well, first I'd like to welcome everybody here and everybody that's watching on the live stream. At the end of the forum, you'll have an opportunity to vote utilizing our straw poll. As you exit to the front lobby, you'll be handed a piece of paper and all 7 candidates' names will be on there. Choose your top 2, put number 1 by the one that's your first choice and the number 2 by your second choice. We will be announcing the winners or the outcome of the straw tomorrow. We'll release it on social media on our website, and you can drop by the headquarters to get answers. As far as, we have a very simple format as far as keeping time. The first round, you'll get to introduce yourselves. You have 2 minutes. And then we're going to do a lightning round. I won't be timing that. You have 1 to 3 words to answer, and we'll just keep going down the line. And third, you'll be presented with some questions, and you'll have 90 seconds to answer. And then last, you'll have 3 minutes for your closing remarks. All right, I have 3 flags down there, a small one. That's to give you 15 seconds left. And if I raise the bigger one, you're done. And if I raise the orange one, Bill's going to come after you.
Good job, Candy. Thank you for all that you do. Questions this evening have been submitted by a citizen committee. Seating was determined by a random drawing, and questions will be rotated to give each candidate an equal opportunity. It is now my great privilege to announce and to introduce radio talk show host Bill Meyer from KMED FM 106.7 AM 1440 in Medford and KCMD FM 99.3 in Grants Pass. Bill's news talk show is Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. I'd venture to say that the vast majority of the people here in this audience wake up to Bill every morning, and I highly recommend it. Thank you, Bill, for being here. I'm going to turn the program over to you now.
All right. Thank you very much, Holly. By the way, the one thing that Candy did not mention tonight is that when you really go over time, there's the Dr. Evil trapdoor. And so that part may not have noticed that, but just brace, okay? Now, we're going to try to really make this roll, and before we even move, I just wanted to say a quick comment that it is amazing. I would give a hand to all these candidates right now. I don't know if you realize just how much work, how much heart, how much difficulty is involved, how much commitment to go all over the state to events like this and talk to people like you. So give them a hand first before we even introduce them, all right? It is a long, long road. And right now we're going to have an introduction, and the thing to do, candidates, is that you'll have a couple of minutes to introduce yourself and just tell us why, basically what your plans are, what you, essentially why you are better than everyone on this stage, and also the people who did not make it in here tonight. All right, so let's start with Jessica Gomez. Jessica.
All right, it's working. Everybody hear me? I'm Jessica.
Yep.
Excellent. I'm Jessica Gomez. I am running because Oregon needs a CEO and a leader who will bring balance to our state and deliver a return on investment for you, the taxpayer. We spend a lot of money and we're just not getting that return on investment. A little bit about myself. I spent my early years in a low-income Hispanic neighborhood. At 9, I couldn't read. At 12, we moved to a rural part of Southern Oregon here, up past Rogue River. And we struggled, and I left home about 15, and I was homeless, couch surfing, living out of a car. I reclaimed my life with the help of some family back east and went on to start my own company at 26 years old. I moved back, and we now have a microchip manufacturing company here in Medford. And that company is part of a broader industry, the semiconductor industry, that's responsible for $11 billion in exports in the state and about 43,000 jobs. I sit on the board of the Oregon Business Development Commission, which is our economic development agency for the state. I'm also the board chair for Oregon Tech, which our main campus is in Klamath Falls. And my agenda is really forward thinking. It's really about our future. We need to bring down the cost of living in this state. We really need to be able to educate our children and so that they're graduating with globally competitive skills. And then we've got to have our communities that are safe, and we got to get our unsheltered homeless off the streets and into long-term rehabilitation programs. So I'm sure we'll have plenty more time to answer questions, and I'll let Mark go. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jessica. Mark Thielmann.
Well, I was so terrified that Bill might attack me. How much time do I have? 2 minutes. Okay, sorry about that. Anyway, so I'm Mark Thielmann. I'm the school superintendent, now running for governor. And for those who don't know, it's Mark with a C, and C stands for conservative. And it's going to take a hardcore, grassroots conservative. And unlike many up here, I am the true political outsider. And unlike many up here, I have stood up to the government as a school superintendent multiple times and won. I kept my school open all year during the first year of COVID. No cases ever traced to the classroom. It was very inconvenient for Governor Brown. Am I right? I took on the Oregon Health Authority and gave them some very challenging circumstances, and that led to the opening up, the surprise opening up of all schools that same January, which was my demand, because our government was lying to you. Our government was not telling you the truth. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but there's a federal study, it's a GAO study that came out, and it said it's now certifiable, it's verifiable. Federal employees are now allowed to say, yeah, some of the data was manipulated for political reasons. How many people knew that without having to have a study? Am I right? There you go. So we need a proven champion. We need someone who knows how to stand in the fire, who can beat our progressive compadres at their own game. Siding with a moderate is not going to move the dial, a moderate Republican or a moderate independent like Betsy Johnson. The only hope for schools, the only hope to address homelessness, the only hope to restore reasonableness and common sense regarding public safety, parents' rights, etc., is to elect a grassroots conservative that all Republicans will vote for and a proven champion. Thank you. I am that guy. I'm Mark Thielmann. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Bud Pierce, good evening.
Good evening. So I'm Dr. Bud Pierce, and I run simply to serve you, to make your life as great as it can be for you. I'm a Christian of strong personal faith. I'm a Marine. I'm a cancer doctor. I think I saw 35, 40 patients today at Lincoln City on the coast. I'm a businessman. We've built our business from a small shop to 250 employees, providing great care to our patients and great jobs for our employees. And I've been heavily involved in philanthropy because I think that the private sector and the people that are blessed with means need to step up and help people that have great need. For you and for rural Oregonians, I really run to bring your lives back, to bring your economy back. What was stolen from you was your way of living in the beginning in the late 70s and early 80s, when our natural resource-based economy was taken away by federal laws that made no sense, did not protect the environment, but destroyed and devastated you. And I'm committed to bringing back that natural resource-based economy for you and your families so you can be prosperous again, that you can do forestry and logging again, that you can grow food again, that you can do natural resource extraction again. And if we do it in Oregon, we're going to do it right. We're going to protect the environment, and we're going to bring back your wealth and prosperity. And I also run to be your governor. You become the governor of the people by living with the people. I think it's important for the governor of Oregon to get out of Salem, to get out of Portland area when the legislature is not in session, and to live amongst you 2, 3, 4 months at a time, to get to know you, get to know your neighborhoods, get to know your businesses, and then go back to Salem and be a true representative for you. I commit to you. I run to be your servant leader.
Thank you, Dr. Pierce. Bridget Barton, a few words from you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Bridget Barton. Happy to be here tonight in Josephine County. Everybody's got their phones out. I have to tell you, I had to leave my phone in my purse because otherwise I'd be checking it all night. I'm waiting to hear about the birth of my first granddaughter, my daughter-in-law. She's been in labor for 18 hours, so it's got to happen soon. I am a relentlessly optimistic outsider and a relentlessly optimistic Republican. We will win the governor's office this year. And I'm running to be your voice, and I am running as an outsider, and I am a real outsider. I have not held political office. I'm not a politician. I don't owe anyone anything, and I have nothing to lose, and I am not interested in a long-term political career. I am running to solve the problems that our elected officials have ignored for decades, and in the last 10 years have gotten so much substantially worse. You know, I also bring to this 30 years of experience as a writer, a publisher of a conservative business magazine, and a strong voice and advocate up in the metro area for rural issues and for education reform. 30 years of experience in networking around the state. So I am a rock-solid Republican. How do you know? I'm endorsed by Oregon Right to Life, by the NRA, by sheriffs, by members of Timber Unity, by businesses across the state, and I'm also endorsed by Lars Larson. All those endorsements will tell you these people understand that I am the candidate that can take it to the Democrats in November and deliver a victory for Republicans. And when I do, I have a message for the career politicians that have been there all this time. The people want their freedom back. They want their power back. And I will do everything in my power to deliver that to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. Bob Tiernan, take it away.
Thank you. I think it's important just to note not only the good people who are here, and every one of us has a good reason not to be here because we've got family and other obligations, but we all made a great effort, and there's somebody who's not here. And I think you should pay attention to who's not here because that person has not been there for outside the Portland metro area for a long time. My name's Bob Tiernan. I grew up in the Bay Area. I went to a Catholic Jesuit boarding school. For any of those who put those three things together, you go, oh my gosh, what happened to him? At 18, I was going on 28, and I came up and went down the Rogue River with my parents when we were 16. I said, this is the place I want to go to school. I attended Oregon State University, the best 4 years of my life. I'm a Beaver through and through. I was on the rowing team. We were good. I was on varsity for 4 years. had a great time. Went on from there to law school at Seattle University, got my JD. After that, went to Georgetown University, got my master's in law. And then I joined the Navy, spent 28 years in the Navy, came out as a commander. My last 7 years of assignments, I was a targeting officer. And it sounds just like it is, targeting, making decisions. I'm an attorney by background, but my real expertise is business. I have started businesses, made some money, lost some money, and after being in business for a while, I had one of my clients, their company was going downhill, and they asked me to come in for 90 days to please steady the company while they hired another vice president or president from Safeway, Albertsons, Kroger, or somebody, and that was Grocery Outlet. I became Grocery Outlet's president and chief operating officer when it was going down. I flipped that company around. I solved the problems. In business, you have to solve your problems. The problem with our state is a lack of leadership. It's a lack of problem solving. In the Navy, as a commander, there are no excuses. You had to get the job done. When I was in the legislature, as chairman of the Crime and Corrections Committee, we solved Oregon's problems and made Oregon safer. Thank you. I look forward to your vote and your questions.
Thank you, Bob Tiernan. And next, Bill Sizemore. Hi, Bill.
I told Bob and Mark that they should just drop out and endorse me tonight. That would make things a lot simpler. So far, no takers. You know, I grew up in the Olympic Peninsula, a community much like this that was destroyed by the spotted owl mess back in the early 80s, I think it was. And my first jobs were like bucking hay, milking 57 dairy cows, and I've set chokers in the woods and done all kinds of natural resource related things. But I'm best known in Oregon for the 25 measures I've placed on the ballot. And Mark introduces himself one way. I'm Bill Sizemore, that's Bill with a B, for the tens of billions of dollars that I've saved taxpayers in Oregon. 25 measures on the ballot, and Bob's done like 4, I think, and that's a lot, by the way. One of them is a life experience.
All of them passed.
Yeah. Try putting 25 on. And I put measures on the ballot to do things like no new taxes or fees without voter approval. Probably the PERS measure was probably the most controversial. The most effective was the property tax measure that has cut taxes in tens of billions of dollars. And where I've made the enemies that have bruised me are the public employee unions. And I think people don't quite get it, that it's not the liberal left-wing Democrats that deserve all the blame. It's the people who fund them. And that's the teachers' unions and the public employee unions through their forced payroll deductions. And one of the things I will do as governor was meet them head on like I've done for the last 20 years. And my highest priority probably is to break the stranglehold they have on the state of Oregon. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Court Boyce. Court, great to see you from the coast. Good evening.
Bill, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you to Josephine County Republicans. You notice this tablecloth is red, it's not purple, and it's not blue. We're going to keep it that way in Oregon, okay? Or at least this part of Oregon. VoiceGovernor.org. My name is Court Boyce, Curry County, Oregon Commissioner. I heard things might be a little rough here tonight, so I got to admit I brought my bodyguard, my mother, Merle. Would you stand up, please? 2 weeks ago, just turned 90. So my sign is when I ran for Congress. I'm not a lifetime politician either. What put me in Congress, running for that seat against Art Robinson, who I absolutely adore, still do, was the fires we had in Curry County. Nobody's going to beat me here on natural resources. Not fish, not forest, not watersheds, not wilderness. I'm working on all those issues in a small county, day and night. I was born in Gold Beach 817 months ago. You can do the math. My history. In 1971, I won a scholarship to go back to Washington, D.C. and stay with John Dellenbach and his family. It was an incredible experience. It's the last Republican we had in the 4th District. When I come back, boy, I really thought I was something because I was only a junior in high school. The next May, 1972. We're sitting in the Gold Beach High School library. We're looking to see what our draft numbers are going to be. Well, lo and behold, mine was 7. My family, no discussion, you're going to serve your country. I was getting ready to go. 2 months later, President Nixon abolished the draft. We started bringing our soldiers home. One more May in 1973, I ran my first tour boat trip up Rogue River. I logged 9,000 tours with the Coast Guard. The point is this. I don't think there's anyone in this room that owes more than me. Had I gone to Vietnam, how different my life would have been. That motivates me to be here tonight and to go through this effort. And I thank you all for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, Court. Mike, a quick note on the sound. Is there a possibility that, is this supposed to have some monitor here? Be nice to hear a little monitor. Okay, just thought I'd ask. All right, very good. Next, we're going to move on to the lightning round. We are going to roll through this. And candidates, what happens with this, you just answer each of the questions in 1 to 3 words, so make it pretty quick. And you'll have some time later in the program to explain some questions that require a little more in-depth. And then we'll give you more time there. And, of course, a piece of paper in front of you to make notes. I think you figured that out anyway. So, first question, we're going to direct this to Mark Thielmann. We'll start with you, Mark. Have you read the October 2021 revised Oregon Party Republican State Platform, and do you agree to work within those guidelines? 2-part question. Just give us your answer, please.
Absolutely. It rocks.
Okay.
There's 3 words. How did I do?
Close enough.
Okay.
Dr. Bud Pierce.
Yes, yes.
Bridget Barton.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Bob Tiernan. Like a Navy man.
Aye.
Bill
Aye.
Sizemore.
Aye, yes.
Court Boyce.
The contrarian, no.
Okay. And Jessica Gomez.
Yes.
All right. Next question. Do you support government mandates for vaccinations? Yes or no? Dr. Bud Pierce.
No.
Bridget Barton.
No, never have.
Bob Tiernan.
No, no, no.
Bill Sizemore. No. Court Boyce.
Heavens, no.
Jessica Gomez.
No.
And Mark Thielmann.
Oh, hell no.
Okay. I think we have some unanimity. I speak for a living. Okay, great. Next, do you support Oregon's sanctuary state law prohibiting law enforcement from asking about a person's immigration status? Yes or no? We start with Bridget Barton.
No, bad vote.
Bob Tiernan.
No.
Bill Sizemore.
Absolutely not.
Court Boyce.
No, push back hard.
Jessica Gomez. Jessica Gomez. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. Maybe I'll slow it down. Do you support Oregon's sanctuary state law prohibiting law enforcement from asking about a person's immigration status?
Ooh. Yes and no. Can I say that?
You can say whatever you want, Jessica. We appreciate that. Mark Thielmann.
Triple hell no.
All right. And Dr. Bud Pierce.
No.
Next question. Are you pro-life or pro-choice? We start with Bob Tiernan.
Pro-life.
Bill Sizemore.
Enthusiastically pro-life.
Court Boyce.
All the way, pro-life.
Jessica Gomez.
Pro-choice.
Mark Thielmann.
Pro-life from conception. Oh, sorry. There's 3 words. There you go. Sorry.
All right. Enough words. Fine. Thanks. Dr. Bud Pierce.
Pro-life.
And Bridget Barton.
Pro-life.
All right. Next question here. Do you...
Pro-life.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Do you support... You see, it's small town. This is the way we do it. Nice and loose. I like that. Next question. Do you support enforcing government health mandates that conflict with religious freedoms? Yes or no? Bill Sizemore.
Do I support the mandates?
Do you support enforcing government health mandates that conflict with religious freedoms? Yes or no?
I do not. I believe in freedom.
Okay. Court Boyce.
Total freedom, no.
Jessica Gomez.
Absolutely not.
Mark Thielmann.
Religion rocks.
Dr. Bud Pierce.
No.
Bridget Barton.
No.
Bob Tiernan.
Freedom.
Thank you.
Freedom!
Wait, nice Kamala. Freedom.
That was Braveheart.
I love this group. I really do. Okay. Next question. Do you feel that the legalization of cannabis, marijuana, whatever, in Oregon has been beneficial or a problem to our state? Court Boyce.
I need that repeated. I'm not hearing too well.
All right. Do you feel that the legalization of cannabis or marijuana in Oregon has been a good thing or a bad thing for the state of Oregon?
Terribly bad.
Okay. Jessica Gomez.
Both.
Mark Thielmann.
A bad thing.
Dr. Bud Pierce.
Bad.
Bridget Barton.
Very bad thing.
Bob Tiernan.
Never should have happened.
And Bill Sizemore.
Bad thing.
All right. Thank you. Next question. The Oregon Health Authority currently uses taxpayer money to pay for abortions. As governor, will you use your line item veto power to eliminate funding for taxpayer-funded abortions? Yes or no? Jessica Gomez.
No.
Mark Thielmann.
Absolutely.
Dr. Bud Pierce.
Wait, yes.
Yes?
Sorry
Okay.
about that.
Bridget Barton.
Yes.
Bob Tiernan.
That and more.
Bill Sizemore.
Yes, and I wouldn't be able to sleep if I didn't.
And Court Boyce.
Yes, it is bad.
Thank you.
I'd like to change mine to yes.
You would?
Yes.
Okay, you can do that.
Thank you.
All right, next question. Do you now or have you ever run an organization with an annual budget over 10 million? Any kind of organization over 10 million, yes or no? Mark Thielmann.
Yes.
Dr. Bud Pierce.
Yes.
Bridget Barton.
No.
Bob Tiernan.
Over $1 billion.
Bill Sizemore.
No.
Court Boyce.
Not even close.
Jessica Gomez.
No.
Thank you. Do you believe that if we don't have election integrity, nothing else matters? Yes or no? We'll start with Dr. Bud Pierce on that.
Yes.
Bridget Barton.
Yes.
Bob Tiernan.
Have to have it.
Bill Sizemore.
Yes.
Court Boyce.
Bring ethics back, yes.
Jessica Gomez.
Yes.
And Mark Thielmann.
Profoundly critical. Yes.
All right. Next one, House Bill 3294 mandates that all schools place menstrual products in every bathroom, including the bathrooms for boys. Hey, it's your legislature, okay? As governor, would you have signed HB 3294, which allocates more than $3 million per year to place menstrual products in kindergarten boys' bathrooms? Yes or no? Interesting question. We'll start with Bridget Barton.
Absolutely not.
Bob Tiernan.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
All right. Bill Sizemore.
Yeah, it's total insanity.
Court Boyce.
No, it's abhorrent.
Jessica Gomez.
No, that seems like a waste of money.
Mark Thielmann.
WT, no.
Okay. And Dr. Bud Pierce.
No.
All right. Next question in the lightning round. See, we can just roll through this. Kate Brown recently granted clemency to Kyle Hedrick. Kyle Hedrick murdered a young woman in the 1990s in cold blood. He served 14 years of a 25 to life sentence. Now, her reasoning, teenagers can change. Now, the killer was 17 at the time. Do you believe that this was a good decision by Governor Brown, yes or no? Bob Tiernan.
As chief sponsor of ballot measure 11, absolutely not.
Bill Sizemore.
If the victim is still dead, no.
Court Boyce.
No, the crime wave is coming.
Jessica Gomez.
No, terrible decision.
Mark Thielmann.
No, accountability matters.
Dr. Bud Pierce.
No.
And Bridget Barton.
No.
Next question. Did you answer the Oregon Firearms Federation candidate survey? Just yes or no? Bill Sizemore?
I did. Yes.
Court Boyce.
Certainly.
Jessica Gomez.
No.
Mark Thielmann.
Yes.
Dr. Bud Pierce.
Yes.
Bridget Barton.
Yes.
Bob Tiernan.
Yes, with straight A's.
All right. Another two-part state. Yeah, I like that. Sneak a little plug in there, right? Another two-part question, though. Do you think critical race theory, CRT, should be taught in public schools? And also, what about gender identity issues? Should that be taught in schools? We'll talk with Court Boyce. Hello, Court. What do you say?
Sex education for first graders, it's insane. No.
Okay. What about gender identity issues? Or critical race theory, I'm sorry.
No on that, of course.
Okay.
No.
Jessica Gomez.
No.
Mark Thielmann.
No, we'll ban it.
Okay. Dr. Bud Pierce.
No. No.
Okay. Bridget Barton.
Banned by executive order.
Bob Tiernan.
Maybe a ballot measure.
All right. And is that yes or no?
That's no.
Okay, good. Just double checking. All right. And Bill Sizemore.
No.
All right. Now we're going to be moving on to more complex questions, and each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer. So, timer, are you all ready to rock? All right, Candy's ready to rock. First question, public safety, crime, and the lack of law enforcement is one of the major problems in Oregon. How would you restore law and order and hold criminals accountable for their crimes? We'll start with Jessica Gomez.
Yeah, so I think the very first thing we need to do is actually have public defenders that are available and have a contract to actually deal with these situations and provide representation for people. I've just received 2 pages worth of people that are charged with felonies that have no public defenders, and their time is about to expire, which means that those charges will have to be dropped. So we have got to deal with the operational failures of our state government, and that will actually help a lot. We've got to make sure that our police departments and law enforcement are properly funded, that they have the tools they need to keep us safe, that they've got the proper training, and then we need to hold them accountable for making sure that they can execute on our streets. And then dealing with the unsheltered homelessness and then the issues that come along with addiction and mental health is absolutely critical. Our police officers are spending a lot of time having to deal with these incidences where someone is in crisis. There's nowhere for people to go but jail or the emergency care system, and it's not working. We have to get this under control. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Mark Thielmann, how would you restore law and order to Oregon?
Well, right now we've had, I don't know how many decades of a very poor relationship with accountability. We let murderers out of jail, we malign law-abiding citizens, we declare them terrorists if they disagree at a board meeting, etc. It is a culture problem, and it can only be changed with new conservative leadership. So, action speaks so much louder than words. On my first day, I'm going to order that Mike Schmidt, the DA of Multnomah County, be arrested. Okay. Now I get criticized for saying that, but the governor is in charge of the Oregon State Patrol, and he's got to get to the interstate sometime. Okay, and I'm very serious about that. If you want to send a message to DAs, you do that because he has blood on his hands. Okay? He did not side with business owners. He did not side with citizens in Portland. He sided with Antifa and rioters and lawbreakers. He let them out of jail and one shot a counter-protester dead. That man is dead because of Mike Schmidt. So the next thing is we decouple funding. When you decouple funding and you roll funding into law enforcement, that means the government doesn't tell the local agency how to prioritize that spending. So if they need more deputies, they can use money for that. If they need more equipment or all of the above. It is not the governor's job. She's done a lousy job. And 30 seconds left, or 15 seconds. Okay, 9. And the last is we have to address homelessness by designating homeless areas, AKA beds, and then I will make it illegal to shelter camp anywhere except in those designated areas, and I will charge police to arrest people. It's going to be a beautiful day. It's going to change quick. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mark. By the way, we will touch on homelessness a little bit later on in this segment, okay? Dr. Bud Pierce, Law and Order. Let's hear it.
Huge effort on bringing back our police department to full morale and full numbers. I had the great experience of leaving leaving basic training and some additional training in the Marine Corps and joining a reserve unit at a time when President Carter was in charge, was the President of the United States. Morale was down, training was down, just no one wanted to join. And then President Reagan came along, and all of a sudden we had great training throughout the United States and throughout the world. We had first-line equipment, we had more resources, and the morale just grew tremendously. So the governor can certainly have the influence, have the tone, have the encouragement, stand side by side with law enforcement, have their backs, and make sure they have all necessary resources. We're going to have to work with city police and sheriffs and county police, and we're going to have to bring back the system as a whole, and that's so critical to bringing back law enforcement. And again, the governor has the bully pulpit, and when you have DAs that are not prosecuting, you have to call them out and call them accountable. And finally, this whole idea that you have, that you break the law in a serious way, and then you get released like same day. The latest thing I heard on the news was someone broke into a car, punched someone in the head, broke their eye socket in some place in the United States, and then they were released without bail to go back on the street. I mean, like right now, that insanity is going to stop. It's just going to flat stop. So thank you.
Thank you. Bridget Barton.
Well, you know, I often say that I'm running to put a hard stop to this 40-year decline and put a hard stop on this leftist agenda that's ruining our state. And crime, substance abuse, and homelessness are the entwined issues that are going to take this state down if they're not addressed directly. So here in Josephine County and in Jackson County, when I'm governor, I'm prepared to declare a state of law enforcement emergency. Talking to your sheriffs, where they describe over 1,000 private grows that they know about, and 8 deputies, and undergunned to go out there and do anything about that. This is a law enforcement emergency. As governor, I'm not going to come down top down like Kate Brown would do. I would come to the counties and say, let's talk about exactly what you need to get a handle on this issue, whether it's additional money or additional officers or additional firepower, and get this taken care of. If it takes a month, if it takes 3 months, declare a state of law enforcement emergency in these 2 counties, because that is what exists right now. The other issue that I would address immediately is the repeal of ballot measure 110, which legalized hard drugs. This has to happen in my first year, and it will. I will bring together the forces of law enforcement, parents groups around the state, and the recovery community to come together to drive that ballot measure forward, send it out to the people. I'm convinced that we are ready to repeal that right now. You guys want to help with the ballot measure? You're good at ballot measures. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Bridget. Bob Tiernan, Law and Order. What would you do?
I first ran for office in 1992 because Oregon was, the criminal justice system has broken down. We had sentencing guidelines at the time where convicted murderers were getting 8 years. Rape was 3 years. Robbery, armed robbery was 18 months. And when you stole cars in Portland, you got frequent flyer miles. There was no penalty. Ballot measure 11 fixed that. I think, picking up on what Ms. Barton said, she's absolutely right. Ballot measure 110 has to be put back on the ballot. It was a mistake. It's caused consequences that are taking Oregon apart. And we're getting more druggies in, we're getting more dealers in, we're getting more crime. It's festering a lot of the crime that's going on, and it's got to be turned around. But the most important function of state government is to keep Oregonians safe, to keep us safe in our neighborhoods, to keep us safe in our towns, in our cities, and our parks. And until we do that, we should not be doing anything else. And our criminal justice system, the whole system is in breakdown in our state. We need to reinstitute it. And what that means is you got to have police who are arresting bad guys. We got the laws on the books. We have to have prosecutors who are going to prosecute, judges who are going to put them in jail or prison. And thank you, Governor Brown, because we have 1,800 empty beds in Salem, and we can fill them up. We must enforce the rule of law. That's the answer. And as governor, that's what I will do.
Hey, Bob, I'm going to ask a quick question on this, and I know this is a little bit out of order. I can do that. Okay, I'll get right to you, Bill, okay? And that would be Measure 11. Is that fully being enforced at this point, or has that been somewhat watered down?
Measure 11, if you're under 18, the legislature watered that down to where we used to be able to try youth between 14 and 18 who committed an adult crime like murder. We would try them as an adult.
Okay.
And that's been basically overturned in the legislature. But 18 and above ballot measure is in full force and effect. And just as a point of note, Governor Brown sat next to me on our committee when the legislature killed ballot measure 11. She didn't like it then. She didn't like it now. And what she's doing is she's abusing her executive authority by taking something that's already passed by the people. You've already decided if you do this crime, this is the time you're going to do. And she's going, I don't think so.
Okay.
And I know better than you.
All right, thank you, Bob. I just wanted to touch in on that because that was pretty salient. Bill Sizemore, how would you take care of the law and order issue? It's a big one.
Well, I think all the things that we have discussed or are going to discuss, whether it's the homelessness crisis or the Antifa riots with no consequences for throwing Molotov cocktails or bricks or rocks at police, setting up a tent in the middle of the sidewalk just because you feel like it, The murder rate, the car theft rate, the burglary rate, skyrocketing, all of it's the same thing, and that's the loss of respect for law and order. And it's easy to target the biggest things, but what Rudy Giuliani did in the city of New York was he started targeting the little things. And there was the broken windows policy. We don't let people have broken windows. We don't let people have graffiti on buildings. We get it. We deal with the people. We punish those who do it. We clean it up immediately so they don't get any joy and satisfaction of looking at their artwork later or whatever. And all of these things have happened because, and I hate to be so partisan as to say this, but I think we have discovered that radical left-wing Democrats are not capable of governing. They have demonstrated it. When the Antifa riots were going on and nobody did anything, except for say it was a peaceful riot, all these signalings, these virtue signaling where they are taking the opposite position of logic and morality, all of that has resulted in there not being a penalty. And when bad guys see there's no penalty, it's just a business transaction for them. Go for it.
Thank you, Bill. Court Boyce, you even have crime problems in Curry County.
Thank you, yes. How much can you emphasize your number one priority as governor, where we are? It's been said here, public safety. Totally. As governor, I can promise you my one pledge would be to never allow demonization or defunding of our police. You look what these men and women put up with. You mentioned Antifa. So in the whole, what they refer to it as a summer of love, and that's what our kids are learning. You mentioned, Bill, too, the disrespect. I know a little something about law enforcement. My father, one of the first American GIs into Hiroshima, less than 30 days after the bombs were dropped. He was a Marine, a logger, and one hell of a lawman. If he saw what was going on right now, it would break his heart. That's why we're losing people. As governor, we can recruit the highest standards, the highest paid, the highest priority. It is something that is, you mentioned the petty crimes, the broken window. Those little crimes have to have a proper civilized societal response. And that means starting over, building a strong foundation, teaching our kids what it means to be, what an honor it is to be a law enforcement officer. Thank you.
Thank you, Court. We next roll into question 2, and it has to do with firearms rights. And given the recent attacks on firearm rights, gun rights, Senate Bill 554, just the most recent one, how far would you, as governor, be willing to go to protect citizens' Second Amendment rights to bear arms? We start with Mark Thielmann.
All right. Well, it doesn't say shall not be infringed for nothing. And it's very simple. So what we have is a culture problem, again, in which we've had 40 years of progressive Democrats who, I agree, Bill, cannot govern. But they also create demons and enemies and fear out of nothing through narrative. So we have a whole generation of kids who have been taught that anybody who owns a gun is an uneducated, redneck, and they're taught to be afraid of guns, literally. And we have to really get creative when we want to address that. So the first thing is I'm a huge and profound 2A supporter. That's why I received, and the only one up on this stage to receive the Oregon Firearm Federation in full endorsement. I take it very seriously, and here's why. Because I will, as governor, the governor is the superintendent of public instruction as well, I will require all high school kids to have mandatory curriculum so that they can become aware that gun safety curriculum, so that they can be aware of guns. They'll know how they can be educated in their safe use, their safe storage, and their safe transfer. And what this does is it starts to change the relationship that our young people will have with guns. It lowers fear of guns, increases safety and awareness, and helps to support responsible, law-abiding gun ownership and use. And that includes having shooting teams that compete just like football and volleyball teams. We already have them, but I'm going to make that statewide. Thank you.
Dr. Bud Pierce, how far would you go?
As far as necessary, the Second Amendment is a bedrock of our society. It protects our freedom. It protects our individual freedom from harm. It protects society from government going completely out of control, although some would say we're there already. I remember my late wife and I, she was a Chinese American woman. We were watching some of the events of the Chinese takeover of Hong Kong. There was a 50-year deal in place for the gradual takeover. In the 25 years, the Chinese said it's over. My wife turned to me and said, well, it's over for them. They don't have a Second Amendment. They don't have a Second Amendment right. So again, so important to our individual security and to our nation's security. In terms of legislation, I think what we're doing is we have way too many laws, and not enforcement of laws. Criminals laugh at our laws, they scoff at our laws. Law-abiding citizens follow the law. A lot of times it makes their lives difficult, and that's really a huge mistake. I think we need to roll back all the state laws. We shouldn't have any additional state laws to the 1968 Federal Firearms Act. That act has plenty of laws in it. We need to enforce the laws, have laws take the guns away from the lawless, let citizens have the right to their laws. I can assure you that when the governor of Oregon comes to this town or any place in Oregon, they have a security element that is all armed. The citizens deserve to be armed if they so wish. We have to protect the Second Amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pierce. Bridget Barton.
Well, I'll start by saying whoever wins this primary is going to need some protection from Antifa if they're campaigning in anywhere in the metro areas. I would also do whatever it takes to protect your rights. You know, in the summer of 2020, those 100 days of rioting up in the metro area of Portland, I live in West Lynn, a kind of nice suburb of Portland. And as my husband and I watched those riots going on and kind of leaking out into our suburbs, we had a moment of reckoning. It was a real moment of reckoning. We were not gun owners until that summer. And at that point, we both looked at each other, and it was the moment, I think, that I felt, you know, it was like that internalized feeling about the Second Amendment. I am responsible for defending myself. Law enforcement is there to help me. And I had a conversation with retired Sheriff Tim Muller, Lynn County, who is a strong Second Amendment supporter, and we were talking about that issue and how critical that is. When people realize that fundamentally the Second Amendment gives them we actually get this from God, but our rights, but it gives us the ability to defend ourselves, and we have to protect that right at all costs. So as your governor, that's what it'll be, all costs. And I am also, as I said, endorsed by the NRA and supported by the Oregon Firearms Federation.
Thank you, Bridget. Bob Tiernan, second A. Take it away.
As an officer in the Navy, I became an expert in rifle and expert in pistol. And so after becoming governor, I don't think I'll need any protection. I enjoy my firearms. I enjoy the opportunity to sport shoot. I really enjoyed teaching my 3 children how to shoot. As an attorney, I have a special appreciation for our Constitution, not only our Oregon Constitution, but more importantly, our U.S. Constitution, and the freedoms it gives us. It's more than just firearms. It's a lot, and we know what those are: assembly, religion, but firearms is the ability to protect ourselves and own is a cherished freedom. And we must do everything as a society, as Americans, to protect that, because you never know what's coming down the road. Now, I went in the military as a Soviet analyst. That's what I did for my first 7 years until I was a lieutenant. Nothing is happening in Ukraine that's a surprise to me. Nothing. But they don't have, and the Russians have taken advantage of that because they had very strict gun laws and they're suffering because of it. We must protect our freedoms, all of them, and no matter what they are. As an attorney, again, I have that special appreciation. I will have a legal staff. I will veto anything that comes out of our legislature that impinges any of our freedoms.
Thank you, Bob. Bill Sizemore.
if you would have come around my little 37 acres outside of Oregon City in Beaver Creek when my kids were 5, 6 years old, you would need earmuffs while they're all learning how to shoot, girls and boys alike. So they weren't afraid of guns, and we didn't have to lock them away in our house, and the kids knew to respect them, but they knew what they were capable of doing, but they knew that in good hands they were safe. I think the bad news about this particular issue is that you cannot put a ballot measure on the ballot and remove the bad laws. Why? I think you know why. Because Portland and Eugene would vote against us. People who live in the cities don't tend to have the same reliance on themselves. They expect the government to give them a park to walk their dog in, the government to give them police protection, et cetera. People who live in the country, they have more individual self-sufficiency, individual responsibility for their safety. They know if they call the cops because they have a problem, they may not get there for a long time. So they're going to have their guns and they're going to be able to protect themselves. So I would say that one of the first things I would do besides promising to veto all the bad stuff is I would like to make Oregon, or try to force Oregon to reciprocate on concealed carry permits with other states. I'm licensed to carry in 35 states, and right now Oregon doesn't respect the license from any other state, and I'd like to start with fixing that.
Court Boyce, Second Amendment. What do you say?
Well, thank you. There's a new study out. Even though it's 2,700 years ago, they've determined that David killed Goliath with an illegal sling.
Oh my. Wasn't registered.
Wasn't registered, yeah. So I chased a bank robber downtown Salem in 2011. He put a 9mm gun in the face of 2 different tellers. I just stepped back and I followed him for 5 blocks. Midway through, he took a shot at me. I stayed with him, got his license plate. Because he took a shot at me, that's attempted murder. So we put him away. So he's probably out now, so I'm trying to convince my wife, no worries, we'll be fine. But you want to tell me, take away my right, my responsibility to protect myself, my family, the peace, the neighborhood? It's not going to happen. So as governor, by the way, I'm hoping most of these people will be working for me someday. It's a great group. So as governor, that's that responsibility to connect with the people. Every one of you out there that are hearing us, there's a unanimous recommendation here. Get trained. There's some great folks out there that will take you through that process. That training is invaluable. That's not a pessimistic viewpoint on bad things coming, but be prepared. Again, we all have a responsibility. Thank you.
Jessica Gomez.
Yeah, so I'm also a big supporter of Second Amendment rights. It's part of our Constitution, and I think this is a really big issue here in Oregon. It's part of what separates, it's part of our rural state with urban. One of the best things that we can do, and this involves all of you, is to make sure that we get balance in the House and the Senate, because that's where these really bad bills are coming from, where they're infringing on our rights. The big piece too is that on the public safety side, we talked about that in the last question. That is the catalyst for this gun legislation coming through from the legislature. So we have to create safer communities. These people point to gun violence, they point to these incidences where that is happening in downtown Portland, and they say, "Oh, quick fix. Let's regulate guns more." And it actually doesn't work, right? Criminals are going to do whatever they want to do, regardless of what laws are in place. And so I look at this and I go, well, are we trying to upset a bunch of law-abiding citizens who are exercising their right? Or are we really trying to solve an actual problem of people really committing these crimes and not being held accountable? So I think that's really where our focus needs to go. It needs to go to making sure that we are holding people accountable, that we're prosecuting these crimes, and that we're making safer communities so that we don't have a legislature that comes and go, "Oh, there's an incident, we need more gun control," right? Because we're not solving the real problem.
Thank you, Jessica. Question number 3. Now, this is going to come to as a real surprise to everybody here and at home. Citizens' respect for and trust of government leadership is low in Oregon. As a new Republican governor, you might need to clean house. Boy, I'll say, how would you manage this process, and how would you restore trust in government? We'll start with Dr. Bud Pierce.
So the great thing about being governor is you get to start with new leadership within state government. You know, that's a real place where the governor has authority. It's not authority over the legislature. You deal with them and you either veto or sign bills. But you really have control over the agencies and the commissions of government. And I'm going to ensure that the people that are in leadership in agencies and our commissions, number one, have a knowledge of what they're leading. Number two, they have proven leadership skills, and if it's a large organization, that they have the administrative skills to manage up to thousands of employees. And number three, that they buy into the idea that government is there for the service of the people. It's not the other way around. We're there to serve people and serve in leadership style. That means elevate the citizen and listen to the citizen and do everything possible to make the citizens' lives easy. And then the second main point is transparency, just utter transparency. We're not going to hide anything. We're not going to charge tens of thousands of dollars if people want a report out of government. You're just going to get the report. We're not going to go through that. There's going to be no hiding. I think the governor needs to not only meet with citizens such as you, but I think they need to meet with the press. And I mean all arms of the press. He needs to do that routinely, answer the hard questions. And again, when something goes wrong in government, and it will, you're going to have 30 to 40,000 employees. You got to own up to it, and you got to fix it. And you never hide things. Never hide things. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pierce. Bridget Barton, you want to take a crack at this?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
You know, in a way, I'm surprised how many times I've been asked on the campaign trail, are you going to have enough people to fill all these jobs, all these appointments? Because it is 300 plus. Now, we won't do them all in the first 2 years because they are on a rotation. But 300 appointments, it is a lot, and, you know, filling the boards and commissions and agencies. But, you know, in the 25 years that I was publishing and writing and acting as an advocate and spokesperson for conservative issues, I have networked with most of the large private businesses in this state and many, many, many hundreds of the small business owners in this state and the working people out there. And I can tell you, after 40 years of not having a chance to participate in government, we've got a bench that's a mile wide. So it is not going to be a problem to find good, talented, capable people to fill these slots. And transparency is critical. But I'll tell you one of the other things that I would do to restore trust. Government has, the liberals like to govern top down. I believe in governing bottom up. So you have not seen hide nor hair of your governor probably for some time. I will be traveling the state. I look forward to working with county government and city government and our legislators and our state senators in their communities, being present to the media, to your newspapers locally, and communicating at that level. That is ultimately transparency, being here in your communities. Of all the candidates up here, I have made the most visits to Southern Oregon because I want to meet you, and I will continue that as your governor. Thanks.
Bob Tiernan, how would you handle this?
I knew I was going to have to ask this question. Can you please read that question again?
Sure. Citizens' respect for and trust of government leadership very low. As a new Republican governor, you might need to clean house. How would you manage this process, Bob, and how would you restore trust in government?
Well, first off, when you have a failing organization, which I've taken over several multi-million-dollar companies as president and fixed them. And the way you fix them, you have to know how to fix problems. You have to know how to hire people. You have to know how to put the right person in the right seat. It's key. The first thing you got to do as governor, the governor has a big toolbox. In that toolbox is executive authority. In that toolbox is emergency powers. In that toolbox is, the most important one, hiring people. They're responsible for the agency heads. We need to clean house at our agency heads. You got to do it systematically. You have to do it, carefully. But we have to put new people in there because we've had nothing but political hacks that have been put in charge of our government agencies without the experience or the knowledge to run them. And we got to get out of the political process and into the skill, leadership, proven experience process and put some people who know what they're doing. And I'm talking about everything from Department of Corrections, Department of Transportation, the Department of Administrative Services, huge organizations, the state police. We need to put smart people in key positions. And yes, they're out there. They're hard to get. It's easy to say, it's like, hey, you're fat, lose weight. Oh yeah, I'll eat less. It's easy to say, it's hard to do. It takes experience. It takes somebody who's done it before. I've done it before. That's how you take a rudder in the Navy, you shove it in the other direction, and you get results by the people that you hire. That's what's going to make you successful.
Bill Sizemore, how would you clean house, manage that process?
One of the things we all, I think, let me turn this on, it works better, right? One of the things that we, I think, all recognize is that you start with replacing department or agency heads. But as Donald Trump found out, or proved at least, when you do that, you still have this entrenched bureaucracy of left-wing Democrats throughout the agencies, all down through middle management and below, who have the same philosophy that Obama had, even when Trump is president. And so it perpetuates the problem. I want to step back a little bit further from that and look at it this way. This is what I've observed over 42 years of watching politics up close. When Democrats are in charge, they believe in government. They believe government is the answer to all of our problems. So they stretch and reach as far as they can until they've overreached so far that the pendulum swings back the other way and the Republicans are placed back in power. But when Republicans are in charge, and forgive me, I'm a staunch Republican and a conservative, but when Republicans are in charge, they are afraid that they're going to get bad editorials in their local newspaper who will say they're not community-minded enough. And so they are timid, and they don't do much of anything, just try to hold ground, and then the Democrats take back over again because the Republicans did nothing, and then they start stretching again. We have to, when we're in charge, we have to go the extra mile to make sure that we gain ground and hold it and not just play defense and hold steady where things are.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. Court Boyce.
You know, there's a race here to see who's the most conservative. We haven't heard the connection yet, the 40 years, whether it's socialism, central planning, whether it is communism or Marxism. I've got to say it. If that sounds over the top, I understand history. I understand what's at stake here. As you just said, Bill, that's how they govern, and they are uniquely bad at it. They don't make the same mistake once. They make it a half a dozen times. They don't even recognize it when it's a mistake, or they ignore it. So as we move forward in Oregon to get trust back, unelected bureaucrats that are enabled by the unaccountable politician that make our lives miserable. Here's one example. In my little county, we have a lot of short-term rentals. Some of them are absolutely first class. We just got a deal yesterday from a planning director, called me down to her office and said, you've got to see this. The DLCD just ruled that a lot of those are in forest grazing. I mean, I didn't sleep last night because I know how that's going to impact my people. And I am going to bat, and that's the first place I'm going to start is with that department. I'm not against planning. I don't think anybody in this room is. But what it does to the freedom and the economy of our state is immeasurable. We're not going to stand for it. Thank you.
Jessica Gomez, how would you handle the hiring and the firing process?
Yeah, well, the first thing I'd like to say, and we all know this, the state of Oregon has probably the biggest budget we have ever had. And we were told, yes, you know, we'll raise taxes and we're going to deliver all of this great stuff. And what have we seen? Nothing. We've seen nothing. So our state is not in a position where it can even execute on the basics of service delivery. We see that in the employment department. We see that in DHS. We've seen that across the board. And so as CEO of the state, which the governor is, the first thing you need to do is build a team, and you need to build the very best team. So recruiting all throughout the U.S., find the best possible people that have core competency in that area where you're going to put them in charge. And then you have to empower them to do the work. Streamline the operation of those agencies, making sure they have clear direction, they have clear priorities, and then holding them accountable to getting that work done, which means, they have to deliver services to all of you. This is about empowering you. This is about being a state of service to Oregonians. It's absolutely critical. And we'll get it done under my leadership, but it's going to take a lot of work.
Thank you, Jessica. Mark Thielmann.
Okay. And not to sound like a broken record, a lot of good points have been made, but can we just cut to the chase? Our government consists of 174 different departments, boards, and commissions, and many of those departments have sub-departments, boards, commissions, and task force and committees. All of them suck. And that's a fact. You can clap. I was just on the token thing for the Pamplin Media, some guy named Dana, okay? And he asked a gotcha question of some of us, and he said, can you guys name one department of government that's doing a great job? And of course, some of my colleagues made the mistake of saying, well, I don't know, And I answered it this way. Dana, could you please tell me what doing a good job is? Could you define that for me? And he couldn't do it. They muted my mic and said, well, thank you. And I cannot tell you, a lot of times they create these commissions just to take political pressure to appease some woke person who wants a committee on, gay, lesbian dance theory or something. And I mean that. There is a committee for that. You guys do know that, right? So here's the issue. You have to put a conservative in office who tells you the truth. I am going to fire it'll take not too long, around 900 plus people is what my calculus says. And that's going to happen.
All right. Next question. This is also going to shock you in the audience and at home. A recent DHM research project, in other words, a poll, 43% of those surveyed in Oregon rated the economic conditions in Oregon today as poor. I know, you're shocked. But as governor, what would you do to restore the thriving economy? And we're going to start it off with Bridget Barton.
What's happening in Oregon is shocking, but across the country with inflation. And working families cannot afford the prices that we're getting hit with. By November, I think this is going to be substantially worse. So I have committed up front, as your governor, that I would suspend the gas tax until gas falls below $3 a gallon. We cannot keep paying these prices. Also commit to passing no new taxes in my 4 years in office. And I would also not sign any new regulations for the entire time I'm in office, because business, as we all know, Oregon has developed a terrible anti-business reputation that's hurting the businesses that are here. We've lost actually thousands of businesses and countless hard-working citizens to red states where they know they can make a living a lot easier than they can here. We have to put a stop to that. I'm going to use the bully pulpit that Bud mentioned to come out immediately and say, Oregon is back open for business. And in order to do that, we have to commit and allow businesses to know that they have the certainty that nothing's going to change. There aren't going to be any new regulations. I say I'm going to put a hard stop, and the reason I use that expression is because it's hard to predict with the legislature that we have and will probably have in November, coming in November, how much can be done to dig our way out of this terrible hole we're in business around the state. But we can do everything possible. Number one, I won't sign any bill, and I will veto any bill that they try to put across my desk if it doesn't help working families, if it doesn't help businesses, if it doesn't make life easier for people that are struggling to earn a living in this state. Because if we're probably coming into a recession, it's going to be painful. You need a governor that will not sign one piece of legislation that does any more damage. And then let's see how fast we can dig out of this hole. So please support your Republican Senate and legislative candidates. Let's get the legislature back, too.
Thank you, Bridget. Bob Tiernan.
Okay, read that question one more time.
In a recent research project, 43% of those surveyed rate the economic conditions in Oregon as poor. Poor economy. As governor, what would you do to restore a thriving economy?
The last great governor we had was a businessman and a Republican, Victor Atiyeh, 1983 to 1987. The heartbeat of Oregon is fueled by small business. And if you have the right conditions for a small business to establish itself, and more importantly, to grow, we will be extremely successful with our economy no matter what area of our economy we're talking about, no matter what part of the state that we're in, because every part of the state has different benefits depending upon the entrepreneurs that are there. It's a great place to live, but you got to be able to work here. So the first thing you have to do as governor, or in solving any problem, if you've been digging a hole, is stop digging. So when we stop digging, that means, of course, no more taxes on business. You know, control your expenditures, government, hello. And the second one is no more regulations. Stop it. Let's have a moratorium on it. Now, okay, that's the status quo. Now what do we do to really undo the damage that's been done? Well, let's get rid of the cat tax. The cat tax. That cat tax is the number one reason now that small businesses are scratching their head and go, why should I grow? Why should I add business? Why should I add people? Why should I hire more when I'm getting taxed on not my profits, but just on the basis of how much inventory I have? We can do it, and that's a good first start. And then the second one I would do is also the overtime regulations that were just passed. We can repeal those. They make no sense in the agricultural side of Oregon. So we got to go proactive. As a governor, that's exactly what I will do.
Thank you, Bob. Bill Sizemore, what would you do to restore a thriving economy?
How many of you have friends, relatives, who have moved to Texas or Tennessee? Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It's surprising, isn't it, how many hands go up at that? I've had several myself. I talked to them on social media and I asked, so where do you live now? I thought they lived, you know, in Medford or something. They said, no, I live in Tennessee or I live in Texas, because they just got sick of this place. You can't expect businesses to want to come here when we have the kind of mandates and the threat of mandates that shut down so many small businesses and put them out of business, many of them for good. And so I think we start with pledging that that's not going to happen. We're going to let people be free to run their businesses, pandemic or no pandemic, and let the citizens be free to go to those businesses or not go to those businesses. Their choice. Wear a mask, don't wear a mask. Your choice. Another area I think that's hurt Oregon a lot is our rather absurd, several decades old land use laws. Especially things like urban growth boundaries, where they draw an artificial line around every community, even small cities, small towns, that they can't grow outside of that. And then they lock up all the land as prime farmland, even if it's nothing but sagebrush and nothing's ever grown on that. And they're preserving that. And we just lost, what, a $20 billion factory or plant that could have gone up in Washington County that went to Ohio, because we didn't have 1,000 acres of flat land that they could use because it was all tied up. There's a lot of things we can do, no new taxes and all that, but I think those are areas that we should at least prioritize.
Court Boyce, restoring the economy.
Thank you again. Doesn't everything come back to the economy? You talk about our housing, homeless. The fires are destroying our economy. By the way, nobody up here has more experience with catastrophic fire prevention than I do. We can talk more about that later on. You mentioned Mr. Tiernan, Vic Atiyeh. I used to take him upriver in the 80s and got to know his family. Rug merchants, good business people. Dave Frohnmeyer, Attorney General. Certainly Norma Paula, Secretary of State. I got to know all these people back in the 80s and spend time with them. Despite what they were doing with the county, they still had that business background, and that's what they brought. They brought statesmanship. They all loved Oregon tremendously. There's our models. Ron DeSantis from Florida, Kristi Noem from South Dakota. Those are the people that are fighting to bring their economic vitality back. It can be done in Oregon, but it's going to be, the free markets, free enterprise. It works. Capitalism has brought wealth to every society that's ever tried it, and they're doing everything they can right now to tear that down and bring poverty to our state. And again, I don't think that's an overstatement. Stay tuned.
Thank you, Court. Jessica Gomez, Restoring the Economy. What do you say?
Yeah, so I love all of this, waving the magic wand and get rid of tax and all of this. What we really need to do is change the relationship between state government and our businesses if we want to improve the economy. We have a really anti-business government right now, and we need to turn that completely around and go back to businesses, local businesses in our communities, and say, how can we best help you be successful, whether that's getting out of the way or facilitating projects to get done. We have some of the highest child care costs in the nation. If you have a child and you need full-time child care, it's about $1,500 a month. That's here locally. So we need to get rid of and roll back those regulatory barriers so we can have adequate child care in our communities. I will do that. I want to have businesses involved in that. I think we can have child care that is provided at work for parents and have that tax deductible for businesses and for individuals. It's really important. We've got to deal with this housing crisis that we have. We have the least available housing out of any of the 50 states. We have not kept up with growth. And so that means getting out of the way and making sure that we can help our developers build new housing. We cannot be obstructionists when it comes to this. And then healthcare. We see healthcare driving up. We also have some of the highest healthcare. We're going to deal with that. And we do that through changing the relationship with our economy.
Thank you, Jessica. Mark Thielmann.
Okay, I'm going to go through this lightning round. Everybody ready? First thing we do is elect a real leader who tells you the truth. Anybody remember when Reagan or Trump took over, how fast things improved? Very fast. It's gonna be like lightning. If you want to win, get ready. First thing I'm going to do, in addition to suspending the gas tax, of course, and declaring no new taxes, is I'm going to use a couple of strategic powers that the governor's office accrued for itself. I'm going to declare a small and medium-sized business emergency, which means I get to suspend all kinds of regulations and rules and laws because it's an emergency, because we shut our businesses down. Over 1,000 disappeared in the Portland metro area alone. What we have done is criminal, and it's going to be undone. It can be undone by a leadership. Now, when we do that, when we say we're going to favor and set rules that favor small and medium-sized businesses, what we're really saying is that this government is going to act in support of we the people. I want family wage jobs for everyone in this room who wants one, because the cheapest welfare program, the cheapest source of economic opportunity, prosperity, and generational wealth comes from a family wage job. If you don't believe me, look it up. It's powerful. The other thing, too, is strategic deregulation is critical, so we have to change our depreciation laws to incentivize startups for new business. We have to open up our ports big time. Our ports should be running at 100% right now, and they're not because of this government. And we get government out of the way by declaring a housing emergency, which allows us to deregulate some of the urban growth boundary rules. It will be a new renaissance. Oregon is going to be the new gateway to the entire nation. I guarantee it. Under my leadership, thank you.
Dr. Bud Pierce.
As a recession looms and all signs point toward it, the answer is always cut regulations and cut taxes. As the governor can appoint agency heads, not only do we suspend any new regulations or rules, we cut them. We ask them to simplify, cut them, make sure that they're in alignment with supporting business in every way. In terms of cutting taxes, we are going to probably have a Democratic legislature, so that's a little challenging, but one of the things that hasn't been talked about much are property taxes. Small businesses especially pay property taxes. Some of the big ones get out of it. We all pay it when we're homeowners. And there are a lot of large nonprofit and name only, extremely rich organizations, hospital systems, rich universities, insurance companies, they don't pay any property taxes. So I think we need to keep the cap where it is now and dramatically lower the property taxes of small businesses and homeowners. Homeowners, by the way, that's critical. In terms of making Oregon attractive as a place to do business, as mentioned before, our land use planning has to be completely redone. 50 years ago, it served a purpose. Now it's killing us. We lost, as mentioned, up to $100 million or $100 billion in new Intel plants to Arizona and Ohio. And land use planning is also making it so hard to have an affordable house, which is critical to having a robust economy. And what we need to do is turn it back over to the counties and not do it in a central way. Education is critical to having a great workforce. We need a lot of work on that. We'll probably get a question. And people have to be off the street so businesses are not afraid to open and new businesses are not afraid to come to our state. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pierce. All right, folks, we're going to call an audible here. We're going to talk about energy. We hadn't planned to do this, but I think it's too important. I monitor the electric grid here in Southern Oregon quite frequently. There are times that, despite all of our gangrene power, which Oregon has decided to hitch us to, the green unicorn, there are times that coal is still over 80% of what's keeping the lights on and charging the electric cars, including the Josephine County Transit bus, I might add. And so the question here, and by the way, this has come from our incumbent governor and her various cronies in the green agenda. This has been a big deal here. This is the plan: no coal within a few years. Let's blow out dams in the Klamath. Let's get rid of dams on the Rogue River. There are people that actually call for that. So my question for you is, what would your administration's energy policy look like? And what would you do? Because there's a lot of power, and a lot of bad power has gotten us to where we are right now. We'll start with Bob Tiernan. Bob.
I get the audible.
Sorry.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
First off, the governor, when the legislation failed in the legislature, she created an executive order to her Green New Deal. And since it is established via executive order on day one, so to speak, the list of things to do on my to-do list would be to repeal that executive order and to send it back to zero. That's the first thing you can do. It's very easy to do. The second thing we do is let's preserve what we have. And electricity and our hydroelectric is the key to our future. It's the reason why a lot of businesses are coming here, because they have low power cost. We have to preserve that. We can't afford to breach dams. We can't afford to breach reservoirs. In fact, we probably need to build more. Another thing we can do is on our electric grid, I think we have to encourage the use of electric cars, but they don't work in many parts of Oregon because I would never have made it down here. I think I would have made it to Eugene, and then I'd be calling Uber to get me the rest of the way. We have to be careful what we do with our power, but we have electric power. It is something we need to preserve. We need to grow it. We need to save it. We need to cherish it. And we can do some things regarding tax credits to encourage people to use less, to conserve. Those are all no-brainers. But we're not getting rid of our cars anytime soon. We're not going to be taxing ourselves out of our fuels that we're going to need, because our businesses are going to need those in order to grow. That's the common sense in me.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. Hey, I haven't seen that flag before.
Yeah.
You got a red flag, man. That's the first time I've ever seen you.
No trap.
She's a flagger.
No trapdoor yet.
I'm
okay?
looking for the checkered flag.
All right, let's go to Bill Sizemore. Bill, take on the energy policy. What will yours look like?
Well, I don't like anything about the Green New Deal because I don't think it's even about what they say it's about. It's another agenda, and it's about control. And I think everybody knows that you will have brownouts if you actually depend only on solar and wind. And the amount of pollution and carbon footprint that's left by those technologies, if you really get into what makes them work and what the mining that has to happen for lithium batteries and all that, it's what they're doing is not what they say they are doing. And sometimes I'm alone in saying this, but I don't know why we have banned the use of nuclear power. What's cleaner and greener than nuclear power? And there's like this anti-technology cult on the left, literally a cult, that they are opposed to things that make a lot of sense. And it seems to be almost visceral. They just do it as a gut reaction. And I think Oregon is fortunate. We have the Columbia River, and we have all the dams, and we have all the access to power. But I think it's time for us to consider small nuclear plants, well spread out, and we will have an abundance of energy for everyone.
Thank you, Bill. Court Boyce, energy policy, go.
I'll get to energy in just a minute, but I mentioned Frohnmeyer, Attia, and Norma Paulus. I forgot to mention Bev Clarno, born in Curry County. We're first cousins. Very, very proud of her. The first woman ever to be Speaker of the Oregon House. And I don't want to leave out Dennis Richardson. That guy was my hero. An absolute, courageous helicopter rescue pilot in Vietnam. If any of those five were here right now as Republicans, as statesmen, as people that truly, deeply loved Oregon, what would they be saying? And here's where I'm going with the energy debate or discussion. Everything's a fight. You better be ready to fight. And I think everybody on this table, at this table, are. So in that fight, what would they say? You got to fight the dragons, but at the same time, don't ever become a dragon. So when it relates to energy, so glad to hear you say nuclear. Why in the world would we rule that out? Remember what happened in Texas last winter? Their windmills froze up. Great planning. People freezing, lost their homes, lost everything because of the green new mantra that doesn't work. So I'm really studying offshore wind. Is that the end of the time? Thank you. I'll get the right flag here. Offshore wind, 23 miles out, off the coast of Oregon, we have great wind. We can be selling, exporting power all over the western United States. It's at rest right now between Washington and California. More on that later. But yes, keep all of our diversity, all of our options open. Thank you again.
Thank you, Court. Jessica Gomez, what would your plan be?
Yeah, so what we have right now is an energy plan that's being driven by the decarbonization trend. So if you think about what we really need to do, and I know Oregonians have a great heart, they want to be environmentally responsible, concerns about climate change are driving this, and we can have an impact, but it's not by driving up costs for Oregonians. We did some calculations a couple of years ago, and it's 1,000th of 1% difference in temperature that we would have even if we went completely carbon-free here in Oregon. So what impacts can we really have? How do we move the dial when it comes to reducing carbon emissions without raising costs? And I think we need to look at new technology. I'm really a big fan of building out our university systems, utilizing that to develop new storage, carbon energy reduction technology, and making sure that we're more efficient. Small module reactors, nuclear, looking at methane pyrolysis, and a lot of other factors, and we can export that technology to the rest of the world and have a larger impact on this issue. And I think when it comes to resiliency, it's really, really important that we still have it. Someone mentioned what happened in Texas. We cannot have that here. We have too much of our rural Oregon is dependent on natural gas and making sure that we have a resilient grid. It's important for industry, and it's important for our cities and our rural communities.
Thank you, Jessica. Mark Thielmann, your energy plan.
At the risk of sounding like a broken record, have you guys noticed that we are under a government that says hydropower is a non-renewable? So government is the problem. What happened in Texas was caused by the government. The fact that we have no nuclear in Oregon is caused by the government. The fact that you are paying more per gallon of gas or diesel because we never had the political will to build an oil refinery in Oregon. So now we pay cap and trade duties from California and Washington and and other states for most of our fuel because we have to import it. All of those decisions were made by, everybody say it with me, our government. Let's fire this current government. And yeah, please. And not only do we need, I'll agree with Bill, an above all the above strategy, but we should be exporting natural gas out of Coos Bay. We should build a container depot, and we should be charging the Chinese surcharge for all the coal they burn and acidifying our rain on the west side of our state. It eats our buildings up. It does damage to our roads. It is a problem that our government is not telling you the truth about. So again, if you really want energy independence and energy stability, vote Mark. Mark with a C. C stands for conservative.
Thank you. Dr. Bud Pierce.
Our energy system must be low cost and absolutely reliable. A first world country doesn't have brownouts and blackouts, and it cannot occur, and if I'm governor, it won't occur. Hydroelectric is reliable, carbon is reliable. I'll make my plug for nuclear, not only the small nuclear reactors, but interestingly, someone beloved by the left, Bill Gates, is building his company, a large nuclear power plant in Wyoming. So that'd be very interesting to take it to the left and say, well, you like Bill Gates, he's got a great project here, how about we bring some of these ideas to Oregon? And again, I so much favor nuclear over large windmills and large solar panel fields. I think they're ugly. I mean, I really do. And if we put them on the Oregon coast, I don't want them anywhere near to the shoreline. I mean, again, I'm not going in that direction, but I do not want to see a windmill on the Oregon coast made by man. I think it just destroys the environment. We need to have commissioners on our agencies and our commissions that know about power, know about how to generate it safely and reliably, who again make it low cost. It's all about low cost. Citizens have to have low cost, government has to have low cost, and all these projects that come up, all these green energy projects, if you want to look at your bills and why things cost so much, you can blame it on technology that's brought forward way before it's ready. And the inability to store energy from windmills and solar is really an Achilles heel. It's not ready yet for prime time. Nuclear is ready for prime time. Thank you.
Bridget Barton.
That was a really good answer. I like that one. Amen to what he said. Yeah, so much of this is just these policies that we've been getting from the left are green theater, just green theater. All cost and minuscule benefit. And the cost, we all pay it, and benefits we get almost nothing. So just to run down the line, though, I would not have, I would veto dam removal, no dam removal while I'm in office. By executive order, I would repeal Kate's cap and trade executive order. And let's see, oh yes, and I was a big supporter of the LNG pipeline and the LNG terminal in Jordan Cove. That project, if we can invite them back, that would be a very good thing. You know, in this last legislature, they virtually tried to ban diesel fuel. And I had the opportunity, I don't know how many of you have ever gotten behind the wheel of a dump truck, but I had the chance to do it with one of the people I was working with on the campaign. And when I fired that thing up, now I promise you I didn't drive it, I don't have a CDL, but I did fire it up and felt the power of that machine. And you know, it was a woman that drives this truck. She said, how far, if this was an electric truck, do you think I would get up the mountains to do my work? Not very far. So, in agreement with what I've heard everyone else say, I would consider an all of the above approach, but things like wind and solar, they would have to be low cost, stand on their own 2 feet without all the government subsidies that they are getting currently. He's right, low cost, because that benefits all of us, taxpayers, businesses, and we have to be able to pay our power bills. We're getting close to where people are not going to be able to do that yet. So,
Thank you, Bridget. All right, we are switching to education. Yay. Okay. State Board of Education members are appointed by the governor. This is a big deal, and approved by the Senate. Now, we may need to replace most, if not all, of the Oregon Department of Education board and replace them with family value educators that will undo the damage that has been done to our Oregon schools. In other words, I think we're talking about a de-wokeification of public education. So, Bill Sizemore, we start with you. What is your plan for public education?
My first plan is to not be endorsed by the OEA. I can do that. Trust me. I can do that. I have said many times, and I'm not just in this campaign, but for the last 30 or 40 years, that teachers' union are a cancer on public education. They call the shots so much. You remember when just to demonstrate their power, when the vaccines came out, whether you like them or not, they were supposed to go to the elderly first, right, because they were the most vulnerable. Kate Brown gives them to the school teachers first, before the elderly, which probably cost lives, and then didn't even require the teachers to go back into the classroom and teach. So it absolutely made no sense. But it demonstrated the power that they have. When Ted Kulongoski was elected governor, he stood up on election night and said, I'd like to thank my public employee union friends for making this possible. And then he appointed the chief lobbyist for the OEA to be his chief of staff. And the president of the AFL-CIO for Oregon, his deputy chief of staff, a complete takeover. So what's happening is until we get competition, until we get school choice, and the money following the student, we cannot fix it. But a governor has the ability to appoint a superintendent that will carry forward that same philosophy, a philosophy of the kids first and not teachers' unions first.
Thank you, Bill. Court Boyce, what is your plan for public ed?
We talked about a lot of long shots tonight, but like Churchill said, never, never, never give up. Put the 10 Commandments back in the schools. Push as hard as we can on that. You know, growing up, if we told a lie as kids, we were stealing the truth. So we got our butts beat for stealing and lying both. You know, 40 years of horrible mismanagement in the school system, 45 years. We've got to turn it around. Our kids and our forest are our two most important resources and greatest responsibility, and we're losing both. We can't afford to lose that. Top down, bring in the experts. Again, look at the red states, the governors around the country that are doing good work. Out of my own pocket, I'll fly them here and their people back to the departments that are completely out of control. Oregon Department of Education. I don't know how else it could be better be defined what you just heard Mr. Sizemore say. Back to traditional values, you know, the parents become more relevant, the unions become more irrelevant. So there's where we are. Solutions, start at the top, work your way down, and don't stop. The kids are that valuable. Their kids are going to be that valuable. It's going to be building a foundation from the bottom up, all the way.
Thank you, Court. Jessica Gomez, your education plan.
Yeah, so the real problem that we have right now is we are not graduating kids that are globally competitive. What's happening right now is just absolutely terrible. We have to get back to the basics of reading, writing, math, critical thinking skills, engineering skills, and allow our schools to specialize in those areas. And so I'm a big believer in choice when it comes to what district you're sending your children to. My kids go out of district because I wanted a two-way immersion program for my children, so they were bilingual. And you know, we can do that in this state. We've got to give parents also the support that they need in order to help their kids be successful. Parents in a lot of cases don't have the right tools. They don't understand how to support their kids in school. That will help a lot. We need small group instruction and bring that back. And then as we get into the higher grades, in high school, I want to put in place a statewide apprenticeship model starting in the 11th grade. So acclimate kids to jobs that are their communities, career pathways that they can take, and really get them that work experience. So they would start working in 11th grade in the field of their choice. They would get a mentor. Their classes would be aligned. And the hope is that, you know, by the time they graduate after 12th grade, they would be ready for work, they have a trade to lean back on, and they have a career pathway, whether that goes through public university systems or not. So thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Mark Thielmann has never talked about education. He's going to try, though.
This is my first time. Well, as a public school superintendent and the father of 9 children, I think I know a little bit about education. So remember, I'm the superintendent in LC who did things very different. The reason I went to that little district in 2011, when I took it over, it had 117 kids. They couldn't afford any programs, wood shop. I mean, it was abysmal. Okay, when I resigned to run full-time for governor, we had just shy of 1,000 kids in that district. And the reason for all of that success was because I didn't apply the government model. The governor is the superintendent of public instruction, and our current one is terrible. She cares more about equity than kids learning to read, write, be able to do math, understand science, learn how to think. She would rather tell them what to think. So all of that stops on day one. Now, I've already picked my deputy superintendent of public instruction because, I'm going to be busy running the whole state, and it's going to be Bob Tiernan, a businessman, right over here. Okay? Take that, Bob.
He stole my line
I did.
earlier.
Anyway. See, I thought, finally, I'm ahead of Bob on this one. But anyway, all joking aside, not that Bob wouldn't do a great job, he would. But in LC...
You're damn right I would.
Yeah. In LC, I applied a business model. Parents are the customers. The quality education we deliver to their kid is the product. We are responsive to parents. We do not judge them. We try to meet every family where they're at and empower them and accentuate their values in the learning of their students. It's a beautiful model, very successful, and it's going to be statewide. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. On next to Dr. Bud Pierce.
Yeah, the people involved with education should only be interested in giving students the best education they can have in the sciences, in mathematics, in writing, and English, and that's their only goal. And the only indoctrination is the love country. No other indoctrination. We have no other agenda. We need to have those kind of people leading and teaching our students. I'm only worthwhile to our society because I had a great public education in the 60s and 70s. I'm a janitor's kid. I had a great public education, could learn how to become a physician and serve the public. And it's so necessary for the people at the bottom of the totem pole like I was to have a great public education. I was involved briefly with an effort in Salem-Keizer to improve our education. It turns out that in Salem-Keizer, which is similar to most of the state, that 1/3 of our 11th graders meet federal minimal standards for reading and arithmetic. 2/3 don't. It's a failing system. Wholesale reform. Other states have done it. Massachusetts, Virginia have great systems. The mechanisms of great systems are great curriculum, great teachers, school choice, money follows the student, and also you have a parent council that's working with the principal and a small group of teachers at the school overseeing the curriculum, overseeing the teaching program, and providing feedback and real running of the school. I think that's key to bring the parents in. So again, wholesale reform, right people, right emphasis. Our kids are depending on us. As governor, I'll make sure they're well educated the same way that I was. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pierce. Bridget Barton, Education Plan.
They say if you want to destroy a civilization, you start with the schools and the children. And I think that's what we are seeing before our eyes. People who know what's going on in our public schools right now can see that our children are being indoctrinated to hate their country. And so, when I came here in 1978, I think our schools were number 2 in the country. And in 1991, when my kids were 5 and 7, the schools were already going downhill, but it was just like an academic decline. At that point in time, charter schools had just been invented, and I thought, this is a good reform, I'm going to jump on this. I spent the better part of a decade trying to get charter schools passed in Oregon through writing, publishing, campaigning on it, working on a ballot measure for it, and eventually we got that through the legislature in 1999. And Oregon has one of the biggest charter schools in the country, the Connections Academy, and I'm proud of that work. It shows that when I get on something, I will relentlessly, doggedly get it done. But when it comes to our schools right now, as governor, the first thing I would do is ban critical race theory. I would ban comprehensive sex education. And the reason is not just that we have to get the indoctrination out, but our kids cannot waste a single minute of their class time. They are so far behind. 46th in the country, 47th in graduation rate. My vision for our public schools that I will put through a new deputy superintendent is academic core excellence, returning our standards. I have a coalition of over 500 moms that are building around the state. If there's anyone here that wants to join that group, and you can be a dad too, we are going to take it to these liberals and get this junk out of our schools. But the reason is so that we can get back to academic excellence for our kids.
Thank you, Bridget. Bob Tiernan, your education plan.
Could you read the question one more time, please?
Sure, you bet. State Board of Education members appointed by the governor, approved by the Senate. We may need to replace most, if not all, of the Oregon Department of Education board, replace them with family value educators that will undo the damage done to our children and our schools. What is your plan for public education?
To answer your question directly, I've probably replaced 15 or 16 different boards of directors. If you really want to change the direction, you have to start at the top. What is that? Jimmy Carter said, the fish rots from the head down. It does. Yeah. We need to replace the entire board. More importantly, we need to replace the deputy superintendent who actually runs for the state. And yes, you know who my first choice is. I announced it a month ago. It was Mark Thielmann. You can count on that, Mark.
I think you're hiring each other one way or the other.
Mark's a good guy. He'd do a hell of a job. Our schools are 45th and 46th, and they've been there for a long time. And we don't fix small problems with small changes. As we say in the Navy again, you got to take the rudder and shove it in another direction if you really want to turn the boat around. So what do we need? We need to inject competition in our schools. We do that by offering or putting our parents in charge of our children, not the teachers, and you have school choice. School choice is in charter schools, trade schools, homeschool, learning from home, online classes. Whatever works for your kid is what we need to do. And you have the money, follow the child. I had a good enough job to where my kids went to private school. Now all my grandkids go to, I have 7 grandkids that live within 100 yards of me. I take them to school. And I think every parent should have that choice and that opportunity. But the cornerstone of our system is free enterprise system, competition. That's what drives our country. That's what drives our economic system. Inject competition between the public schools and the private side and school choice, and our public schools will have to get better or they will die. That's the solution.
Thank you, Bob. Now we're going back to that poll, that DHM research project we were talking about a little earlier. 29% of the responders said they felt homelessness was the most important problem facing Oregon today. Now, it's not about the bleeding heart necessarily only. I mean, it also has to do with the crime and all the rest of it. If you looked at that poll, it was pretty close to about 2/3 of Oregonians are saying, Houston, we have a real problem here. Or maybe I should say Salem, we have a real problem here. And so we ask now, what is your plan or are your plans for minimizing the causes and effects of homelessness? And we start with Court Boyce. Hello, Court.
Boy. Next question, please. No.
And I know it's a big, broad one. It really is.
That's okay. It's what happened here just about a month ago, $400 million the legislature passed to go into the homeless problem. There's 15,000 people that are homeless in Oregon. That's $27,000 per individual. Throwing money at failed experiments never work and never have worked. If you even just take the responsibility out of the unimaginable spending that's destroying our kids' future, financial irresponsibility, go to the homeless people. I've got one plan that you could do a color code. Start with the veterans. Purple. You could learn, some of them do not want to be bothered, but you can determine if they need help, how they need help, how you can affect their lives. You know, fire is my number 1 issue, well, number 2 behind housing. You know, we sometimes joke and say we train them to be firefighters. If they want to eat, they're going to have to work. And we need firefighters throughout the state, throughout the entire West. Learn how they became homeless. The more we learn, the better we can do. Again, though, throwing money at it is not the answer. Come back to the economy. That will build that economic base, work with those people, mental health. That's the best, those are the best directions to pursue.
Thank you, Court. Jessica Gomez, I imagine you have an interesting perspective on this because I believe you were homeless at one point, if I recall.
I do. I've been there. I know what it's like. And it's not a good situation to be in. And at that time, as a kid, we were called throwaway kids, right? But the homelessness and the unsheltered homelessness that I see now is different. This is driven by addiction and mental health. That's what we're seeing. This is a symptom of a much bigger issue. And right now in Oregon, we're about number 50 in assistance for people who are struggling with addiction and behavioral health. Our system is failing completely, right? And so what we really need to do is start by addressing that. So the model that I have is modeled after elderly care. It's community-based. It's got 3 levels of care. The first is the most secure. It's where you would see your memory care residents, where you can't just get up and leave. You have to receive treatment. The next is assisted living, and the next down would be independent living. And we need to do that for our unsheltered homeless people that are struggling with mental health and addiction, and start them at the most secure level of care. And so that they can get on the right medication, they can detox, whatever it is that they need, and work through that process of getting healthy and reconnected with their families again. Once that's put in place, we need to just say, no, we have a place for you to go, and it's not on our street. We'll help you get healthy. We're going to hold you accountable to that, but you cannot be in the community wreaking havoc on there. And we've got to clean up our cities. We've got to get rid of the blight and all the tents and really prepare our downtown areas for reinvestment. And this is especially true for downtown Portland, because if Portland isn't successful, our state cannot be successful.
Thank you, Jessica. Mark Thielmann.
Okay, well, we have a government-enabled homeless problem that has grown well over by a factor of 4 since the election of Donald Trump. So why would homelessness explode when Donald Trump became president in Oregon? We had around 4,000 in 2016. We happen to have well over 15,000 now. And that's because progressives went crazy. They lost their ever-loving minds, and they were going to show just how loving and caring they were by allowing people to live in squalor and allowing the degradation of our communities, our city parks, our roads and highways and byways. Okay, that is not love. Okay, somebody working to appeal to their virtue while real human beings, 15,000+ people, suffer with addiction, crime, houselessness, because that's the new term, right, homelessness. And it's absolutely wrong. So again, what's the solution? It's very simple. Okay, we elect a conservative, and on my first day in office, I will give every city, municipality, and county 60 days to identify official homeless places for people to camp, because that's what the Boise Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals decision requires if we want to actually do something about the homeless. And what that does is that means I will declare that camping anywhere else is illegal, and police will pick people up, and we will route them into treatment and supports, and we will get data on them. And if people don't choose, they can choose incarceration, they can choose drug treatment, or they can choose mental health services, or both. And then the fourth choice is if they won't choose anything healthy, we will bus them to San Francisco or Washington, D.C.
All right, you're done, right?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. It was a good punchline, though. I was just saying. Dr. Bud Pierce, your homeless plan.
2 groups to discuss. One is people that have pension, have money, have disability, Social Security, and housing's too expensive. In our United Way, we've spent 5 years trying to put 400 square foot homes in decent lots and decent neighborhoods for around $100,000, stymied it every step of the way. We need to be able to build affordable housing, lower cost land, much lower fees, some relaxation of how we build the structures. For the others, the homeless that we see on the streets now that are suffering, it's hard to watch them suffer. It's hard to for them to suffer. 1 to 3 die every day in our state. They need to be taken to shelters, and at those shelters begin the hard work of drug rehabilitation, alcohol rehabilitation, treatment of mental illness. There are good programs like Rogue Retreat in Medford that are on a small scale, and they can be brought up to full scale. And again, individuals don't have a choice. You go to a shelter, and most people, I think, will take that shelter advice and help turn their lives around. And the ones that won't will need to find private accommodations in the private sector, or they'll be back on the street, at which time they'll be arrested, and they'll have a choice of going to a locked shelter or, frankly, to be incarcerated. You have to have a stick when people won't help themselves. As a doctor, when people come in and they're out of their mind and they say, I want to go, you just don't let them go. There has to be a consequence. Is a consequence to change our lives for the better. We have to be compassionate and we have to be firm. Thank you.
Bridget Barton.
Well, the first thing to establish is, if you've been to any other states around us, you know it is possible to solve this problem. Other states out there don't have the kind of homeless problem that we have. It is the left coast, as we refer to it, that has the most significant problems with homelessness. Second thing, we don't have a homeless problem. We have a substance abuse problem. And I say that, as many of you know, I am 40 years in recovery from alcoholism. I started drinking at 14, and I was a chronic round-the-clock alcoholic at 28 when I stopped. So you can do the math. I'm actually 69 right now. And in that 40 years, I have worked with many, many people struggling with alcoholism and addiction. I've been on the board of DePaul Treatment Center, a large treatment center in downtown Portland. I know from my core, from this work that I have done and my personal experience in life, that what we're doing on our streets is not compassionate, it's inhumane. We treat dogs and cats better than we treat these fellow Oregonians. Not all of them are, but there are human beings. We are enabling them to commit slow suicide on our streets. My plan would create a database which makes it legal then to get them off the streets. If there is a shelter space available, I would immediately go county by county and use available government buildings retrofitted to be low barrier shelters. We must then apply all the money that has been allocated for housing to treatment. We're number 50 in the country on treatment. We will not solve the problem until we get rid of ballot measure 110 and until we create more treatment beds for these people. It is a substance abuse problem, pure and simple, and we have to put a hard stop to that. I know. You put a hard stop in front of people. You don't enable them. You make the right thing easy. You make the wrong thing very difficult.
All right. Thank you, Bridget. Bob Tiernan, what would you do about the homeless issue?
I think Dr. Pierce and many of us up here have done a good job outlining the problem. But how do you solve it? First off, every problem that's facing Oregon now has a solution to it. What it doesn't have is the leadership, the background, and the experience to get it done. The homeless problem is a statewide problem. Yes, there's about 5,000 or so in the Portland metro area, but there's about 10,000 in the rest of Oregon. You know that, we know that. It's a statewide problem, and you can't solve it one place and then not solve it someplace else. You can't play whack-a-mole. We'll settle it in Grants Pass, but then they go down to Medford, and that's what's going to happen. You have to have a statewide solution. What is the solution? You need a short-term solution, you need a long-term solution. The short-term solution is get them off the street now. And now means now. It's not like I'm going to count to 5 to get upstairs and go to your room. No, it's now. And it can be done. It can be done. Allowing the homeless to live in squalor on the street with unsanitary, incredible conditions, and not only that, but creating even worse conditions, which you're not solving a problem. And some of the liberals think you're solving a problem. You're actually creating 3 more problems. Now, since when is it ever solving a problem when you create 3 more? So you got to get them off the street right away. The long-term solution is you need to go through what you already heard here, which is a triage of what caused it, where you're going, and what can we do, because there's about 5 reasons for homelessness. But that's what you do. Get them off the street now, have a long-term plan, put an action plan behind it, hire the right people, put the plan in place, get the strategy done, put a timeline on it, and hold the people accountable. That's going to solve the problem.
Thank you, Bob. Bill Sizemore.
Bob's tough.
Or what, were you talking about hiring each other? Or?
He's trying to get me to drop out.
No.
Okay.
I'm going to put Bill in charge of the
Hey, did
union.
you guys see that handshake deal right there? I saw that.
Bill is going to be head of labor relations for the state.
It wasn't behind closed doors.
This is getting to be educational.
All right.
I'd like to go back to what I said in the very beginning about lawlessness being the where most all of these issues stem from. Imagine, just roll back your culture clock 15 years ago, for example. Imagine someone walking down the street of your town or in Portland and saying, oh, this is a nice spot right here. I'll just set up a tent here. And I'll just spew trash all the way around it, and I'll toss my used needles out on the sidewalk, and I'll use that storefront over there for a restroom. Would they have done that 15 years ago? No. Why? Because there would have been someone down there right away to drag them out of there and say, you can't do this. We have lost the ability to say, no, you can't do this. Now, I believe everybody up here would probably have the boldness and the courage and the heart to say, no, you can't do this. But we can give people the opportunity for drug rehab or mental health treatment. But one thing we can't give them is the third option is to stay there. We just have to let them know you can't stay here, period. You will be arrested if you do. I just lost a crew chief. I have 5 crews, painting crews, 3 in Central Oregon, 2 in Portland. And I lost one of my crew chiefs because his dad died, and he'd been 19 months clean from meth, and he's back on it. And he's been on it for about 3 months now, and he says to me, Bill, I'm so ashamed, I'm so embarrassed, but I'm trying and trying, and I can't get into rehab anywhere. That's where we have to invest money. If we're going to tell people get off the streets, we have to invest the money it takes to have a rehab available.
Thank you, Bill. Great answers up here tonight. And now we're going to have our closing comments from each of the candidates. And I would also say, candidates, you have 3 minutes, up to 3 minutes. But if there's anything you forgot to mention and anything else that you've discussed tonight, this would be a great time to give a pitch to the voters, to the people who are listening. And so let's go to Jessica Gomez. Jessica, you started off.
Thank you. So when we started, I shared a little bit about my background, my personal history. And the reason I do that is because that is a story about resilience. It's a uniquely American story that a kid like me that faced those barriers can still be successful in this country. And we are slowly allowing that to slip away. Let's not do that in this state. I want to make sure that your children, your grandchildren, and everyone that comes after us has the ability to be successful in this state, because I believe, we can keep our community safe. We can teach our kids how to think, not what to think, make sure they're graduating with the skills they need to be successful. I think we can have a great economy. We have an opportunity right now to be one of the best states on the West Coast, right? We can solve the unsheltered homelessness problem that we are struggling, but it's gonna take leadership, and we cannot let up. We've gotta have something different. We've been under one-party rule for quite a long time, and we see the results of that. We are struggling. It's not that our goals are bad, it's the execution is terrible. We do not have a functional state government right now, and we need to get back to that. Under my leadership, again, we're gonna solve this unsheltered homeless problem. We're gonna get people the help that they need to get off drugs, to be successful. We're gonna have a world-class education system where we're teaching kids early. We're teaching them those work skills. They got a career path. They're gonna go on to have a great career and be able to successfully support their families. And we're going to have businesses coming back and being able to thrive in this state. And we've got to be able to bring down the cost of living. In this state, we have seen a 200% increase in housing since the 2000s. That is unprecedented. We have some of the most expensive housing right here in Medford, Grants Pass. We have a 1% vacancy rate. So we got to get out of the way and let our developers do their job. I think modifications to the land use planning is going to be really important. We've got to get infrastructure out and about and be able to really support an economic environment that is focused around opportunity and empowerment for people. We've got to change the culture of our entire state. And you'll see a very, very different state under my leadership. So I'm excited to serve you, just like I've served in my company and all the boards and commissions. So I'd be honored to have your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica Gomez. Mark Thielmann.
All right. Well, everybody, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I know these things can get long and a little rummy, but you guys have hung in real well. So the first thing I'd like to say is leadership actually matters, okay? The people we elect, there's consequences to that. And the only way for us to get the dial back to common sense, getting everyday people back to being able to access things, is to elect a conservative. This is a very important election, and we need to elect the right one. So a couple of things. First and foremost, we need to elect someone who has the tenacity and the cunning and will engage in the conflict to open up our natural resources. That means logging, ranching, water, ports, huge issues. All of these things have been under siege by this current progressive government. And so, again, you have to elect someone who says, I'm going to send a letter to the federal government giving them 90 days to open up the forests, or I'm going to issue contracts to Oregonian logging companies, and we're going to create safety corridors and manage our lands based on good ecological science so that we have more deer and more elk and more resources, which creates more access for hunters and fishers and anyone else who needs to make a living in the forest. And when you listen to that, that is a rare quality. And it's one of the qualities that I'm bringing. It's the same reason why I took on the government and gave back parents their control and said no to masking. And what was the outcome of that? Oh, I got beat up, called all kinds of names, but all of a sudden, on the 8th day after I gave them a response, I gave them 8 days to respond because they gave me 8 days. I believe in equity. And then they announced the end of masking. And then they moved it from the 31st of March to the 19th. And that wasn't good enough because other districts started stepping up because masks were harming our kids. And it was incontrovertible. It took a school superintendent supported by a school board to tell people the truth. Stand up for our kids, stand up for our parents. I'm going to stand up for you. And we, the people, are going to win when I'm your governor. Now, I'll expand it even further because you haven't waved the flag yet, okay? Imagine what it'll be like when I have weekly press meetings. Weekly. Now, Governor Brown hasn't done that. Weekly gives me an opportunity to talk to you, the people, and to say, here's what this initiative does, here's why we're engaging in it, here's why it's constitutional, either state or federal, here's what why we think it's going to benefit and create access and opportunity for everyday Oregonians, here's what we think you will see 3 to 5 years after it's implemented, and here's why it creates a brighter future for Oregonians so that young people can stay and buy a house and afford a car. And here's what you'll see when I'm your governor. Within 6 months, we're going to have a sea change of people moving back to Oregon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Dr. Bud Pierce, your closing comments.
So life has made me an effective leader. Every day I marshal through dozens of patients with cancer on their journey, their battle with cancer. Some of them pass away, many survive. You learn so much about leadership, about leading people, leading their families with hope and with integrity. I've been very effective in leading our medical practice from 6 employees to 250 employees to multiple sites throughout the state at a time at which private practices have gone away. Most of you have lost your private practice physician. And we've done it again by focusing on our patients and focusing on our employees and again leading with integrity and honor. And that's how you get things done. I've been involved with numerous charitable efforts. We raised $50 million on a voluntary basis to provide medical care to the uninsured in our community in 2014. Again, that was leadership by getting people to agree to the importance of the plan and leading them to solve the problem of lack of insurance for people that were seriously ill. I found that leadership is done by bringing people together. It's not divisive. It's by getting people to focus on a common goal, by the leader breaking down the barriers, by the leader supporting those whom they're leading, and again, always maintaining on goal. You know, politics is about division. It's about power. I remember Jesse Ventura said, all I need to know about politics, I learned in WWF wrestling, you divide up the 2 sides. There's a good side, the bad side, whichever side, and you go to war. And again, that doesn't solve problems. That just doesn't. And again, many of the people up here were outsiders. I think what we bring are solutions to problems. If you elect me as governor, we will have safe streets. There will not be violence on our streets. You will be protected. Your property will be protected. The homeless will be off the streets once and for all into meaningful, life-changing programs. They won't be on drugs. They won't be on alcohol. Their mental illness will be treated, and if they try to live on the streets, they're going to be in a locked shelter. They're just going to go to jail, and most of them will reform. They'll rehabilitate. Our educational system will be top in the nation because kids like me and kids like that are regular, that don't have parents that are affluent and can send them to special schools, need to have a top-notch education so that they can achieve in life. And we're going to have a government that is a government of service, that serves the people. We're going to cut the cost of government. We're going to cut the inflation rate. We're going to have a highly productive society. And finally, the natural resource-based economy will come back because we need it for Oregon, we need it for America, we need it for the world. We need to have products made in Oregon again, not only manufacturing, but we have to do our timber, our food production, our mineral extraction. All of that is critical to our success. So I present myself as a governor to you. I will serve you. And again, it's servant leadership. That comes from my faith, my Christian faith, that we lead from below. We elevate you. We do everything possible to make your life great. And if you elect me, your life will be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pierce. Bridget Barton, your closing thoughts.
Thank you for being here tonight and listening. So I'm Bridget Barton. I told you I am a relentlessly optimistic outsider. And I am very optimistic that we will win this general election. I also told you that I have 30 years of experience as an advocate and a spokesperson on education reform, on business, natural resource issues, et cetera. You've listened to us tonight. You can tell for the most part we agree. So you have a really tough choice to make, and you have two questions to answer. Number one, who do you think is actually going to stand and fight for you, is going to turn things upside down, actually get things done, and really serve you on these core issues that matter that the politicians have ignored? And the second question you have to answer is equally important. Who can win the general election? So you have to check both of those boxes. Well, I'm standing before you telling you I am not afraid to do hard things. I have done a lot of hard things in my life, from facing my own addiction, to breaking horses to help put my kids through college, to starting my own conservative business and keeping that afloat in this very liberal state, joining the board of the Freedom Foundation and fighting to get public employees out of their union dues. I've got some evidence that I'm not afraid to do hard things. I can also tell you that as far as who can win the general election, look at who's endorsing me. Oregon Right to Life, Lars Larson, Timber Unity, business owners, sheriffs. As I said, these people are endorsing me because they know that I'm the person that can take it to the left, the hardest. Part of the reason is because as a woman, I can go at those two women and go at them hard and hold them accountable for the complete disaster that they have made of our beautiful state. And I've been asked, in fact, in a recent debate, the guy next to me was asked, what's going to be your negotiating style? How are you going to reach across the aisle and bring things together? And we had a card we could throw down if we wanted to add an answer, and I said, I'm not putting my card down. You know what? The legislators, they can negotiate back and forth if they want, but you're electing a leader to change direction here in Oregon. And I said, I am not going to negotiate. I'm not going to reach across the aisle. I'm putting a hard stop to our 40-year decline. Now, I'm not going to be adversarial, and I'm not going to make wild statements about things that I can't actually do, because I want to win the general election for you. And that's the kind of candidate you need to elect in the primary. We have to hold our base and have a conservative candidate like me taking this forward, leading some of the other candidates forward, that they can be proud to have someone at the top of their ticket that's a conservative, but that can win. And so it's important that we can actually get across the finish line. So I'm asking for your support. I'm asking for your vote. I'll tell you, I cannot wait to say to those career politicians, we want our power back. We're going to have our power back. Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. Bob Tiernan, your closing thoughts tonight.
first off, thank you for everybody coming. This is quite a force here. You know, I always say that one person can make a difference. Oh my gosh, look at you. You got hundreds of ones out there. Our state needs a turnaround. We all know the problems. We discussed them here tonight. But who can turn that around? We need leadership, proven leadership, experienced leadership, somebody who's done it before. Go look at your voters pamphlet. Compare all of our background and our experience. And then ask yourself, who has the most experience to get the job done? I've been lucky, I have run multi-million-dollar businesses. I've turned them around, I've managed them. I know how to solve problems. That's what I do. I've been doing it for a long time, very successfully. Go into your local grocery outlet, put my name in front of them, and watch them smile. Yeah, he saved our company. In the Navy, as a commander, there are no excuses. We had to get the job done, every single time. In the legislature, as I said earlier, as chairman of Crime and Corrections Committee, we made Oregon safer. And when the legislature locked up, we went out with a ballot measure, like Bill has done. And we changed the law, and we made Oregon safer. I have been there, I have done that. And I'll do it again. What are the problems? We talked about them tonight. The rule of law, hiring enough police officers, supporting them, getting prosecutors to prosecute. And yet, if my Portland prosecutor didn't prosecute, guess what? I'd lead his recall as governor. You ever seen that before? I'd do that. And guess who gets to replace that prosecutor once he gets recalled? The governor. That's right. There's always solutions, there's always answers. The homeless crisis, we talked about it. The biggest problem with that crisis is we've let it go on for 6 and 7 and 8 years. Failed leadership. If they would have nipped it in the bud back when it first started in 14 and 15, we wouldn't be where we are at today. Repealing Measure 110, absolute. Would I file another initiative? Legislature doesn't want to do it? Absolutely. Why? I've done it before. Bill's done it before, from start to finish, with no help from anybody. Schools, we need competition. We need vouchers. We need options for parents. We need better schools. Let's create that incentive to create a momentum to get our public schools to fix themselves. Otherwise, they will put themselves out of business because we have options. We got to turn around the agencies. We've got to replace agency heads. I need to have this gentleman down here is help me fix the schools. And we got to be concerned about all of Oregon. We all have to be in this together. No matter what part of Oregon you live in, if there's a problem in Grants Pass, it's a problem in my backyard, and I will fix it. That's what we need for Oregon. We can turn it around. There are solutions, and I will find them, and I will implement them, and we will once again make our state great again.
Thank you, Bob. Bill Sizemore, some thoughts from you, please.
About a decade ago, I spoke to an audience here in Grants Pass. I think there was over 1,000 people, and it was some kind of I don't know if it was a National Day of Prayer rally outside or something in the park. And I told them, or some of you probably back then, that we keep hearing, why don't you guys just learn to get along? Your politicians on the left and right, they're always bickering. And I told that audience, there used to be middle ground, but there's not middle ground anymore, because what's happening is two worldviews are colliding, two polar opposites. One that believes in free enterprise, individual responsibility, God and country, and one that believes in secularism and socialism, collectivism, and one of those sides is going to win and one side is going to lose. And never, since I said that 10 or 12 years ago, has it been more obvious that we are on opposite sides and we're not finding middle ground. When somebody wants to teach little children in kindergarten, first, second, third grade, sexuality and transgenderism, we are having a collision of two worldviews. I got approached in the courthouse in Multnomah County, which I consider that's my own personal hell. I got approached there by lawyers from the Department of Justice and lawyers from the Teachers Union in front of a judge, and this is what they said to me. The Teachers Union lawyer says, Bill, look, you owe us $4.4 million, which I did in a case in which I was neither a party nor a defendant. A judge just said, yeah, you can have a judgment against Bill anyway. And so they wanted to use that as leverage, and they said, look, Bill, you owe us $4.4 million. We know you don't have $4.4 million. We don't want $4.4 million. We just want you to go away. Seriously. It's actually illegal to do that. They said, if you'll sign an agreement to stay out of politics for 16 years, we'll forget the $4.4 million. Why did they offer that? It's because I think it's just a gift. But I have found ways to get under their skin. I have found where they are weak and how you can hurt them. And I did a PERS measure. I actually worked with Bob in 1994 on a PERS measure, passed, and then the Supreme Court, all of whom are on PERS, threw it out. I have now designed a whole new way of paying public employees that gets rid of the PERS problem and gets around the court's contractual obligation issue. And I have designed something bold and new for that. No time to talk about it in the last 7 seconds, but I will tell you that pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, all those kind of things, I will be the kind of governor who has been tested and proven, and I'm not just talking when I say I'll go toe-to-toe with them and I won't back down, because I've proven it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. And Court Boyce.
Last, here we go. Boy, I admire everybody up here. Absolutely to the core, the hearts. Everybody that showed up tonight, you can make the difference to saving our state. That's where we are. 2 years, we've been through some hellacious times. As a county commissioner, I watched churches be claimed non-essential, pot shops claimed as essential. My head's still spinning on that. You know, everybody's talked about natural resources. What I've seen, and I'm calling out, whether I'm governor or not, I'm calling out the radical environmentalists and their lawyers that have absolutely destroyed thousands upon acres, and they double down. It is destroying our watersheds. It is destroying our entire timber industry. I'm from a logging family way back. It is destroying our fish habitat, and then they want to remove dams so we don't have water storage, and the firemen show up to the fires with empty hoses. This insanity, it just can't be described any other way. So as far as conservative goes, I'm pro-God, pro-family, pro-gun, pro-constitution, pro-growth, pro-business, pro-law enforcement. You want me to keep going? I mean, I think everybody's in agreement here. Those are the answers. Tradition works. Virtues work. That's what we need to teach our kids. From the very beginning of what they can be, how they can excel in the United States of America, we all have that obligation. This is Grants Pass. The father of Grants Pass, a guy by the name of Glenn Woolbridge. I got to spend the last day ever. He first floated the Rogue River in 1915. He powerboated it all the way up successfully in 1947. I spent his last day in August of 1985. He said, Court, there's a lot of really good tributaries that helped me in my river of life. He said, and I was about 35 at the time. He said, go out and be a good tributary. So that's why I'm here tonight. I don't know what my role is, but I know I'm going to have a role. I know I have a responsibility. Thank you, Glenn, for that memory. I hope you can trust me. I want to be authentic. In fact, I want to be as authentic as Hunter Biden's laptop.
That's real.
We are not a country of men. We are a country of laws. That's the beauty of representative government. That's the beauty of the Republican Party. That's the beauty of conservative philosophical and political views. I wish fight wasn't the only word, but it's a word that can only be explained, as Ms. Barton said. All of us up here are in the fight. I'll fight for everything that I believe in and everything that you love. BoyceGovernor.org. Thank you.
Court, thank you so much for the Russian disinformation. I got that from MSNBC. Just thought I'd let you know that. First off, please hold on just a minute. We have a couple of announcements. We have to do that, all right? First off, put your hands together because any of these people could be elected tonight, and I could be just thrilled, all right? Holly's going to tell you more in just a minute, but yeah, give them a standing O. I think that's wise. Besides, you need to stand up. You're probably numb. All right. Thank you so much for having come. And what I wanted to mention is something I wanted to mention is that as a talk show host, a lot of times my natural inborn cynicism is tested with talking with politicians quite often. It just is. And this group up here tonight has restored a little bit of that. It's kind of good to hear people talking about some solutions out there. The one thing I would add, though, is that when you're ready to vote this year, not just for governor, but for the other races too, think about the people who you think could take on even problems within our own party. And I say that as a strong, staunch Republican. And I'm speaking of probably a couple of disastrous legislative sessions in which a lot of bad bills were passed by, shall we say, I'll try to be polite about this, collaborative Republicans, okay? It's not a rhino necessarily. It's really kind of like a collaborative. I don't know if it's about Stockholm Syndrome in which we're going to help the left and maybe we'll get a little crumb at the table or something like that. It's not working, okay? And so our governor is going to have to work with these people and I guess show the way, I think is what I would say, a good way. I'm just trying to be politic because all these people I've talked to, I consider them friends. But I have to look at some of the fruit we've been looking at the last couple of years. It hasn't been real good coming out of the legislative sessions. The fight has been checkered, okay? So on that note, think about that. And as you choose, and Holly, I guess you'll talk about the straw poll and everything else and a few more announcements. Okay, thanks.
A couple quick announcements. First of all, thank you so much to Bill Meyer. We appreciate him. Yay. If you want to be informed in this county, you got to set your clock and turn him on every morning, 6 o'clock a.m. He has a great program you got to watch. Thank you to all of the candidates. Wouldn't you like to just drop kick a whole bunch of the people in Salem and bring in this team to solve our problems? Oh my goodness, we could just get it done. I want to thank Clyde Heiberger and Wade Drake of Grants Pass High School for making this facility available to us. Isn't this a great venue for something like this? I'd like you to please take a look around you, make sure we take all of our trash out. We don't want to leave them any problems because we've run over a little bit of time. I want to thank Candy Kaiser for keeping us all on track. And as she mentioned below, yay. As Candy mentioned below, there are going to be ballots in the back as you walk through the back door. Cast your ballot. There's a little red box at the bottom of the stairs. Let us know how you felt about this event. Thank you, Mike Jones, for being our videographer the evening. Thank you to Sheriff Candidate John Knapp, Jim Ciano, my beloved, and Liberty Watch for managing our security tonight. And thank you for the Republican team who made this all possible. And last and not least, get your ballot in. Get all your neighbors to get their ballot in. We need to keep our county conservative. Thank you very much.